is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Tuesday, October 17th, 2023. My name is Sam Seder. This is the five-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Trita Parsi, Executive Vice President at the Quincy Institute for Responsible Statecraft, on the danger of Israel's Gaza assault becoming a regional conflict. Meanwhile, Joe Biden headed to Israel tomorrow, delaying the Gaza incursion. 13 House Dems call for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. And the man who stabbed a 6-year-old Palestinian American to death apparently was obsessed with what right-wing radio coverage of the Israel-Hamas war. On Capitol Hill, Jim Jordan, to have his floor vote today, seems to be about 20 votes short, but no one knows. We may have live coverage of that later in the program. Meanwhile, Dems are launching ads tying frontline Republicans to the former wrestling coach seeking to become the Speaker of the House.
Good job, Dems.
Ford's CEO begs the union to end strike. Amy Coney Barrett calls for the Supreme Court to adopt an ethics code.
Hey.
Violent crime declines in 2022. Decline presumed accelerating in 2023. And the Biden administration eases sanctions on Venezuelan oil in exchange for freer presidential elections. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It is Tuesday.
Newsday.
Look at that. We're finishing each other's sentences. Emma Vigland here on the Majority Report. Just wanted to, we're doing an interview today. It won't be a full show interview necessarily, but it's one that we pre-recorded yesterday. And with Trita Parsi. Just wanted to, before we start, just shout out to all the folks at the American Prospect. They had a get-together last night in Brooklyn. Bunch of Majority Report listeners were there.
Nice.
It was fantastic. I met two different guys named Sam and multiple people. And Train Boy was there.
Hey.
And at least two or three people. One guy came up to me and said that he joined the DOJ antitrust unit as an intern because of this show. Another young guy said that he went to public policy and he's working on stuff in Red Hook. Went to public policy graduate school, working on stuff in Red Hook because of the cruise ships are coming in and docking in there and are polluting the water. There was some union folks there. It was really great to meet a lot of the folks who both listen to the show and are interested in the American
awesome.
Prospect. So that was fun.
Yeah.
That explains your voice today.
And that explains my voice today. Yeah, I hadn't really thought about that, but yeah.
Little fry.
Little fry. I didn't get much sleep last night, and it wasn't because didn't go very late.
Oh.
Anyways, We should
that
say
open-ended.
that, and this just in, Ron DeSantis still running for president, apparently.
Wow.
Yep. And he was on with Margaret Brennan on Sunday, CBS's Face the Nation. And this is what he had to say about Israel and Gaza.
And let me ask you a little bit more about that, because of the 2 million people who live in Gaza, half of them are under the age of 18. Let's take a listen to something you said yesterday.
We cannot accept people from Gaza into this country as refugees. I am not going to do that. If you look at how they behave, not all of them are Hamas, but they are all anti-Semitic.
I'm sure you know all Arabs are Semites.
Pause it for 1 second. Ron DeSantis has jumped around in so many different directions as to how he's running his campaign. But that is literally, and I don't know if you guys saw the original of this, but it was when Donald Trump came down an escalator and said, we can't allow Mexicans in this country. He's now found his Mexicans.
But I don't know if the anti-Semitism accusation elicits the same visceral reaction that Republican racists have about rape and things like that, what Trump said.
Also, like
because they're also anti-Semitic, the Republican base.
This would be clearly like taking people in as refugees and not just them crossing our border like hordes in the imagination.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's an homage, if you will.
Yeah, it doesn't quite have the juice of me anyway.
No, but that's Ron DeSantis in a nutshell, right? It's mini Trump, but really mini. Just to go back just a little bit.
But they are all anti-Semitic.
I'm sure you know all Arabs are Semites, but how can you paint with such a broad brush to say 2.3 million people are anti-Semitic?
Well, first of all, my position is very clear. Those Gaza refugees, Palestinian Arabs, should go to Arab countries. The U.S. should not be absorbing any of those. I think the culture, so they elected Hamas. Let's just be clear about that. Not everyone's a member of Hamas. Most probably aren't, but they did elect.
I'm sorry, we just have to do this in real time. According to calculations about just because half the population are children, and because of the fact that the median age in Gaza is around 18, 19 years old, people have said that around 7% of the existing population probably was a part of the last elections that were held in Gaza, which were in 2006 because of how much killing, how much exodus there is in Gaza. That is not accurate whatsoever. So and then that's the first point. And then the second point is that doesn't matter what people's government does. Collective punishment is a war crime. Even if 100% and all the little babies that are getting killed right now in Gaza voted for Hamas, still a war crime. Okay, thanks.
Any of those. I think the culture, so they elected Hamas. Let's just be clear about that. Not everyone's a member of Hamas. Most probably aren't, but they did elect Hamas.
In 2006, and then the military occupation happened after that, where they went in and haven't allowed elections since 2007. So in 2006, there was an election.
But there was a lot of celebrating of those attacks in the Gaza Strip by a lot of those folks who were not Hamas. But if you look at their education system, this has been an issue for a long time. They teach kids to hate Jews. The textbooks do not have Israel even on the map. They prepare very young kids to commit terrorist attacks. So I think it's a toxic culture. And I think if we were to import large numbers of those to the United States, I think it would increase anti-Semitism in this country. And I think it would increase anti-Americanism in this country. And that's something, after seeing those demonstrations pop up in our country, just with blood still flowing amongst Israeli citizens over the weekend, you had people taking to the streets cheering on the barbarism of Hamas in our own country. That was a chilling thing to see, and I don't think that that's something that we should ever think is acceptable.
I was there. I saw it on 9/11.
But no one's talking about getting Gazan refugees here right now. They can't even get out of Gaza.
Copying everything that Donald Trump said.
Yep, that's exactly what Trump said about 9/11.
I saw them celebrate.
Saw all the Muslims in New Jersey celebrating the Twin Towers. As he was calling into the Howard Stern show, or no, it wasn't the Howard Stern show. Sorry, that was a separate broadcast. As he was calling into whatever show, Trump's now bragging that Trump Tower was the tallest building in New York City. Yeah. Then saying that he had the view from above to see all the Muslims in New Jersey celebrating the Twin Towers falling.
I was on the tallest building in New York.
Can this guy come up with his own crap, or is this just going to be complete plagiarism with just a whinier tone and less charisma?
I know the answer.
Bloodthirsty Islamophobic piece of garbage.
Here is AOC the next day on CNN responding to at least a part of what Ron DeSantis had.
If you look at how they behave, not all of them are Hamas, but they are all anti-Semitic. None of them believe in Israel's right to exist.
There's a lot in there, but I wonder for you, is he touching on something that that is perhaps real here? Should Arab countries be taking on the lion's share of the burden to absorb what could be over 1 million, if not more, refugees from Gaza?
I think there's something to be said about the region's partners being able to support and step up Palestinians. However, that does not abdicate the United States from our historic role that we've played in the world of accepting refugees and allowing people to restart their lives here. And I also want to address something very specific about what Governor DeSantis said when he said, quote unquote, all Gazans are anti-Semitic. How incredibly destructive and dangerous that rhetoric is. We just had a 6-year-old boy stabbed 26 times this morning because of rhetoric like that. And it is dangerous, it is unacceptable, it is reckless, and no leader in the United States of America should be amplifying a message like that.
And, it is not, there's a lot of evidence. I mean, we don't know all the details of that that stabbing of that boy, but as far as being reported at this point, according to the wife, and it's a very, it's a horrible story, but it's also incredibly bizarre and disturbing. I mean, aside from obviously that a 6-year-old boy was killed and stabbed to death, the 71-year-old Joseph Zuba, I guess his name is, was the landlord of the 6-year-old and his mother. And apparently they got along quite well prior to the past couple of weeks. And according to the man's wife, Mary, told investigators that Zuba listens to conservative talk radio on a regular basis and became obsessed with the war between Hamas and Israel. Because prior to that, according to a neighbor, the boy looked upon this guy like his grandfather, and literally was. This is according to I guess a neighbor. The mother didn't have even 1% suspicion he would hurt the child because Zuba had been like a grandfather to the boy, even built him a tree house. The child, when he saw Zuba, ran to him for a hug and instead was stabbed 26 times. I mean, obviously, but that's what that kind of rhetoric does.
And I mean, let's be clear here. Just listen to what, as we're in the midst of this incredibly emotionally heightened moment, when you hear Ron DeSantis weaponize anti-Semitism in that way, let that be a moment for you to reflect on. Maybe you're having conversations in your life right now that are incredibly frustrating, but understand that that is being incredibly cynically used, anti-Semitism. And the neo-Nazi anti-Semitism, the anti-Semitism that is incredibly real in the West, is not applicable to exactly to what we are talking about right now, which is Hamas, a terrorist group, being empowered by an impossible situation, a powder keg in this continued occupation of Palestinians, and killing senselessly horrifically. Now, what it's the total of Israelis is 1,400, and then the total of Gazans and Palestinians is now over 3,000, and it's going to keep going up and up. And the death totals on the Palestinian side, that's where the increases are going to see. Don't be disempowered, because this is the argument that's coming from the right, and it's being cynically used. And also, just like to the point about refugees, if the United States is going to fund this and choose to fund the quote-unquote defense of Israel as they bombard a population that's one of the poorest in the world, the very least moral responsibility that we have is to take any Palestinian that wants to come into the United States.
And
but that should not be even that's the lowest bar possible. I mean, looks like, thankfully, Biden is going to Israel and hopefully preaching some restraint. But even so, even if Gazans are allowed to evacuate, it still opens the door potentially for the takeover of northern Gaza, and that is also ethnic cleansing. So I just want to be clear about that, because I know it's difficult to talk to some people in your life right now about this very topic, but listen to what Ron DeSantis has to say, and then you'll understand where the moral side is on this topic.
DeSantis is deploying a logic that invites more deaths, including of Israelis. That they voted for Hamas. You could say, well, they voted for Bibi. They have a racist culture. Well, there's a racist culture in Israel.
Mm-hmm.
They don't accept Israel's right to exist. Well, yeah, they don't accept Palestinians' right to exist. Like, this is just inviting more and more violence.
I mean, I think that, to me, like, I gave up on the sort of like the moral argument going back and forth, because it just depends on, who wants to set at what time. And, like when people lived on the land, yes, 2,000 years ago in Jerusalem, I get it. But in terms of efficacy, if the state of Israel was established so that in the wake of the Holocaust, so that Jews could live in a safe country, at one point, this project went the wrong direction, and it is not working. Mm-hmm. And you can go in as the state of Israel and you can level Gaza, but unless you're prepared to kill 2.1 million people, you can get rid of Hamas. Maybe. But the idea that something's not going to return in its wake when you have killed brothers, mothers, fathers, sisters, children of people living in Gaza for something they had no part of, the idea that that's not going to radicalize people, and this problem's not going to come back. I mean, this is what, the 17th incursion into Gaza that they're planning? I don't know what the actual number is. But it's somewhere around there. That's not just a made up number. And at one point it becomes clear it's not working. And I'm not saying that Israel should have had no response whatsoever to this, terror attack. It would be absurd to say that they would have no response. But how many thousands need to die, and to what end? It's not working. It's simply not working. And they need to figure out another way of doing it.
And then to be also to add to that, you're coming at it from a rational perspective, right? It's not working to protect Jews in Israel. It's not. But is the Netanyahu government coming at this from a rational perspective, or are they coming at it from a fascist, deeply racist perspective that wants to clear out northern Gaza for potential annexation? That is the central question here. And then we're talking about ethnic cleansing at the very least.
Where do the refugees
look,
mean
we don't have to speculate. We don't have to speculate on fascist elements in the government, right? I mean, and I never know how to pronounce it. Smotrich.
He's a proud one.
Is a self-proclaimed fascist. Ben Gvir. There's no other way to characterize what he's saying. I mean, they're fundamentalists, they're ethno-nationalists, and Netanyahu is trying to cover up from his failure in keeping people safe. And the reason why there was no military down there is because they were up in the West Bank, essentially helping settlers steal Palestinian property. And we are reaching the outer limits of the capacity of this government to suppress this amount of people. And even by their own logic, this is a failed project, and they need to go into a different direction. And so, it at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if Bibi Netanyahu is a horrible racist in his heart or not. You look at the actions, and the actions are failing even based on their own logic. And so,
well, I mean, one logic is like, if there are refugees, regardless if they go to Arab places or South Dakota, that means that more Palestinians have been removed.
Of course. I mean, they were refugees. They're in Gaza.
Yeah.
Because they were refugees from where they were living in 1948, or their grandparents were living in 1948. And so, I mean,
concentrated in a place that has 90% of the population has no clean water before this happened. Youth unemployment 70%, regular unemployment around 50%. Half the population are children. Just to underscore the level of desperation here, they are unable to travel. There's no airport without Israel's okay. It's very difficult to get to see their relatives in the West Bank. This is exactly the conditions that create more violence. Systemic violence begets terroristic violence, and then more violence in response. Enough.
All right. Well, we got to do some ads.
Okay.
It's tough to make these turns. We weren't even planning to get that far into it right now, but we got Trita Parsi that we interviewed yesterday about the potential for a widening regional conflict. Good for the Biden administration at this point. At the end of the day, if the price for them to inhibit an Israeli incursion into Gaza is that they've got to make public proclamations, then good. I mean, certainly it appears that Biden's timing on this trip tomorrow, both was contingent upon a humanitarian aid package, but what it also does is they will not invade while Biden is in Israel. And they probably won't do it while he's in the region. And he's going to, I believe, to Jordan after visiting Israel. And so every day that passes where Israel is not invading Gaza, there is a infinitesimally, but not insignificant, chance that they will not go in. The government obviously wasn't prepared for this. You look at it's easy to sort of knee-jerk reaction in this situation. We'll see. But moving on, want to just talk about a podcast that you should check out. I want to talk about Future Hindsight. It's an award-winning podcast. It takes big ideas about civic life and democracy and turns them into action items for all of us. Mila Atmos is passionate about unlocking the power of everyday citizens. You can join her on the show as she zeroes in on what you can do to get engaged and stay engaged. Every Thursday, she talks to bold activists and civic innovators to help you understand your power and your power to change the status quo. Last week's episode, she spoke with Stephen Levitsky, professor of government at Harvard University, co-author of Tyranny of the Minority. Don't miss their conversation about how a multiracial democracy can only be achieved if we reform America's anti-democratic institutions like the Electoral College, the filibuster, and more. Find them at futurehindsight.com or wherever you listen to podcasts. Also, I've mentioned this in the past, but about a year ago, I started to notice it's getting a little thin on this side of. It's weird. This side of my head gets a little more thinner than this side. I'm old.
You're blessed. I mean, honestly, most men would be like, "Wow, you've got a good head of hair for your age."
But here's the key: it's like I want to keep it, and so I got out ahead of this. Years ago, Nutrafol had wanted to advertise with us. I asked Michael if he wanted to take it. He didn't want to, and I think that he didn't want to acknowledge. Maybe I don't know, but and then. You had a story about it, and I had these around, and I'm like thinking I'm gonna start taking it. And then they came back as a sponsor, and the whole thing about Nutrafol, and this is, essentially this calculation I'm making. I can stop this before it starts at no cost to my health, because Nutrafol provides a whole body health approach. It promotes healthier hair, and it has no drugs. No compromises, just better hair. 80% of men will experience hair thinning in their lifetime. It's normal, and it doesn't have to be your fate. You can get ahead of it like I did with Nutrafol. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement. It's clinically shown to improve your hair growth. You can see visible thickness, which I have, visible scalp coverage, got new growth coming back in here. Nutrafol's hair growth supplements use physician-formulated, natural, science-backed ingredients. It's drug-free. It's a patented technology that provides consistent, reliable results without compromising your sexual health. Go to Nutrafol.com/men. Take their hair health wellness quiz. It'll help you identify the causes of your thinning hair, and Nutrafol will give you a personalized plan for better hair health through whole body wellness. What Nutrafol does is it targets healthy hair growth by targeting root causes of thinning hair, such as stress, hormones, environment, nutrition, lifestyle, and metabolism, again, through whole body health. And it works. Clinical study, 84% of men showed improvement in their hair after 6 months of taking Nutrafol men's hair growth supplements. Take the first step to visibly thicker, healthier hair. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com/men, enter the promo code TMR. That's TMR. Find out why over 4,000 healthcare professionals recommend Nutrafol for a healthier hair. Nutrafol.com/men, spelled Nutrafol.com/men. Enter promo code TMR. That's Nutrafol.com/men, promo code TMR. We'll put the link in the podcast and YouTube description. Quick break, and we'll be right back with an interview that Emma and I did with Trita Parsi, Executive Vice President at the Quincy Institute for Responsible Statecraft. We are back. Sam Seder, Emma Vigeland on the Majority Report. I want to welcome to the program Trita Parsi. He's the Executive Vice President at the Quincy Institute for Responsible Statecraft. Trita, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, let's talk about the peripheral aspects of this and whether they stay on the periphery, I guess. Who are in terms of this conflict widening, and we have no idea, we have a good sense, but we don't really know what further actions Israel's going to take in terms of invading Gaza. But with the assumption that there is going to be some type of incursion into Gaza by the Israeli forces, give us a sense of the peripheral players who may get involved at that point. Like, what is the first sort of like domino, I guess, that could fall in this instance?
Well, first of all, thanks so much for having me. I think this is a very dangerous situation. It would require a tremendous amount of discipline by a lot of different players to ensure that this does not escalate into a region-wide war. You have already now some skirmishes up in the north from Hezbollah and Israel. 5 Israelis have been killed. Now, those are not necessarily unusual. They tend to happen. It's become more intense. It's still within the rules of the game that the Israelis and the Hezbollah has established for themselves. I think the big concern is this. If the Israelis go in by land, which at this point seems, almost inevitable, and it ends up becoming extremely bloody, which also seems to more or less be inevitable, and potentially leads to a significant weakening of Hamas. At that point, there is a risk that Hezbollah may step in because of not necessarily saving Hamas, because I don't think that's, their relationship is close enough to that, but in order to save themselves, because there are fears. And there's some Israelis that are already making the argument that since more than 300,000 reservists have already been gathered right now, that Israel actually is ready for a war with Hezbollah. So why not go there? I'm not saying it's a majority opinion, but it's an opinion that is being expressed inside the Israeli government. And if Hezbollah does this, if we end up having a war, not just skirmishes towards the north, with Hezbollah being involved, the argument that Iran is involved takes on a completely different meaning, because Iran's relationship with Hezbollah is much, much tighter and coordinated than it is and ever has been with Hamas. Some of those early reporting about an Iranian war with Hamas, we cannot completely rule it out, but what was the basis of that was highly unconvincing to me, given the nature of that relationship. If the Iranians are more directly involved, it's going to be a tremendous amount of pressure on the United States to take military action. We've already seen that the administration's strategy by moving warships to the Mediterranean, by the president himself very clearly telling the Iranians don't, is seeking to deter them from getting involved. My critique of that is, while I think it's absolutely correct to deter the Iranians and others not to get involved, I'm not really sure how that's going to work out if there at the same time is very little restraint, if any, that is being asked of the Israelis. Because if the Israelis don't show restraint, if this then ends up becoming a true bloodbath in Gaza, then it's very difficult to expect that even the deterrence of an American attack will ensure that there will be restraint shown by Hezbollah.
Can you?
Let me just. I just want one follow up on this. So, in terms of what will I guess motivate Hezbollah? Will it be the idea that the loss of Hamas as a potential threat to Israel will make Hezbollah like the sole threat that Israel at that point, who has now amassed, hundreds of thousands of extra troops, will be sitting there and they'll just continue on? Or is it possible, or does Hezbollah feel threatened and therefore that they need to begin to engage merely because they're reacting to perhaps the carnage of civilians?
I don't think it's so much of the carnage of civilians. That will definitely put pressure on them from below. And those images may not be shown on American TV stations, but they will be shown by Arab TV stations, by Al Jazeera, etc. And it will inflame the entire region in that sense. But I think it's more that you have to put yourself in thinking, how do they perceive the situation? And we may think that it's clear Israel is not going to be, on a war footing and actually extend the war into Lebanon. You're sitting where Hezbollah is, you're not necessarily going to count on that, particularly when you see more than 300,000 reservists being gathered and equipped for war right now. So it's about what their perception is of what the threat picture to them will be if they are sitting and not intervening and allowing Israel to have a successful raid in Gaza that more or less decimates Hamas. Now, first of all, I'm not so sure that even is going to be the scenario, in the sense that I'm not so clear how Israel actually would succeed in doing so. They can damage Hamas tremendously, but to truly defeat it, as the Israeli objective is, seems very difficult to achieve. But the point being that their perception is that if Israel is not if it doesn't have to deal with Hamas, if Hamas more or less has been taken off of the playing field, then Israel will then move north and Hezbollah will be in a much more precarious situation. And as a result, it is more rational for them to intervene prior to that and not save Hamas, but at least try to see if that victory of Israel becomes a Pyrrhic victory, which then would disable it from moving north and taking on Hezbollah.
Makes total sense. I'm wondering just if you could zoom out for a second, because our audience may have heard the term Hezbollah before, but may not have a full understanding of what Hezbollah is. Can you explain that, its connection to Lebanon and then Iran as well?
So Hezbollah is a Shia Muslim movement that was created in the early 1980s in Lebanon through the explicit help of the Iranians. This is early in the Iranian Revolution, when the Iranians were trying to spread the Islamic Revolution. To some extent, Hezbollah would never have been successful in its creation had it not been for the Israeli invasion of Lebanon back in 1982, which actually kind of galvanized opinion there against the Israelis, not initially, but after a couple of months. Now, Hezbollah's relationship with Iran is very, very close. They're both Shia. Hezbollah essentially are seeing Iran's supreme leader as their spiritual guide. They're all within that same ideology and ideological view of the region. The Iranians have armed, trained, equipped Hezbollah. They view them as their first line of defense against Israel. Part of the reason why I don't think the Iranians were looking for a nuclear bomb to deter Israel is because through Hezbollah, they believe that they already have a pretty effective deterrence. We saw the war in 2006 when Israel went into southern Lebanon, ultimately failing in defeating Hezbollah. It ended up becoming a success or a victory for Hezbollah by virtue of essentially surviving that fight. And that was after 34,000 Israeli troops invaded southern Lebanon. Their relationship is completely different from that of Iran's relationship with Hamas. Hamas comes out of the Egyptian Muslim Brotherhood, a Sunni movement. Its original founder, Yassin, that the Israelis assassinated in 2004, absolutely detested the Iranians and the Shias and did everything to make sure that Hamas did not move closer to Iran and kept a very significant distance from. After his assassination, things have changed between Hamas and Iran, but not to the extent in which the Iranians and Hamas have the same relationship as with Hezbollah.
Give us a sense of Mohammed bin Salman's interest, I guess, and what they're doing in this situation. Israel and Saudi Arabia were, I guess it depends on who you were talking to, at least pursuing some type of normalization. But within the past couple of days, the pressure seems to be on the Saudis to at least indicate, some relationship with Iran. I mean, how does that work out? Is Saudi Arabia going to be any type of substantial player in this?
Well, let's take a step back and talk about the normalization first, and then we can get to the last part of your question. For the last couple of months, Saudi Arabia and Israel, through the mediation of the Biden administration, have had very serious and advanced negotiations about Saudi-Israeli normalization. This is essentially the extension of the Abraham Accord that the Trump administration put together when they managed to get 4 Arab countries to normalize relations with Israel without any clear, significant, or meaningful concessions on the Palestinian issue. This, in their view, was an important shift in the region because it essentially showed, they argued, that you can have reconciliation between Israel and the Arab state without resolving the Palestinian issue. From the other perspective, it meant that these countries abandoned the Palestinian issue, betrayed the Palestinians in order to improve their economic relations and security relations with Israel. The Biden administration tried to expand that by making sure that Saudi Arabia, a much, much more important country than the UAE, for instance, who was the first to normalize, would also normalize with Israel and then continue the path of essentially trying to get normalization agreements without any major changes on the Palestinian issue. The thinking essentially being that the region was now ready to move beyond the Palestinian issue, not to resolve it, not to fix it, not to achieve a two-state solution, which has been a long-standing American goal, at least ostensibly, but instead move beyond the Palestinian issue. That fundamental idea and the assumption behind it, I think, at this point is in ruins. Because while the world may have forgotten the Palestinians, the US certainly did, the Israelis were happy to, and some Arab regimes were happy to forget about the Palestinians did not forget about the Palestinians. And unfortunately, through a very horrific attack, they have reestablished their relevance and the impossibility of ignoring their plight and their situation, both in the West Bank and in Gaza. In that context, MBS is now in a rather precarious situation. He had really banked on the idea that he could normalize and that the Palestinian issue was not that important any longer, and that he could become the leader of the Islamic world without resolving that issue, but actually helping to put it in the margins. That's failed. And now he is, I believe, scrambling. He needs to be able to regain some sort of a relevance on this issue because the Arab world clearly cares about it. And his past position and his silence on these issues are not going to play particularly well, particularly when the Arab public are watching and seeing thousands of Palestinians being killed. So, for instance, he ended up having a 45-minute conversation with the Iranian president, the first one that they've ever had, even after they normalized the relationship. And I think at least one consideration from the Saudi side there was to re-inject itself into this issue in order to prevent the Iranians to have full ownership of being the main sponsor of the Palestinian cause, something that, of course, is a negative in the Washington context, but is a significant positive in the regional context. So I think he's playing a bit of a catch-up at this point. Exactly where he wants to go or where he will end up is unclear at this point. But I think the geopolitical landscape that he had bet the normalization strategy on has shifted so dramatically that he needs to shift a lot of these other positions as well.
And that big shift is simply that there was a sense that you could just simply ignore the Palestinian, the existence of Palestinians, and eventually it wouldn't be an issue whatsoever. And let's talk about Egypt here. There is essentially two doors, if you will, out of Gaza, which has been, considered an open-air prison for almost 2 decades now. One is to southern Israel. The other is to the Negev Desert, across the Rafah gate, I guess, into Egypt. It is unclear that Israel has said for Palestinians, to head to the Negev, although it sort of seems to be what they're suggesting, although they're at first they bombed Rafah Gate multiple times, as far as I can tell. But what is the ability of Egypt to absorb refugees at this point? And what are their interests here?
Well, Israel doesn't, the Egyptians don't have much of a capacity to absorb. And we're talking about the Israelis urging about 1.1 million Palestinians to flee to Egypt. Egypt doesn't have that capacity to handle it. Egypt is hardly standing on its own as it is right now, given a tremendous amount of mismanagement and economic corruption and economic difficulties that it faces. Moreover, there is a fear because of past history, that if that mass exodus of people leave what is currently Palestinian land, it will create an opportunity for Israel to conquer and annex Gaza. And then you have another problem, which is you already have several million Palestinians living in refugee camps in Jordan and in Syria, and who are asking for a right of return. Egypt would now also then be a host of a very large number of Palestinian refugees that they would not want to completely integrate into their country, who wants to return to Gaza, and you would have a deepening of that conflict at a moment where the public in Egypt is going to be completely up in arms about what's happening in Gaza and very strong anti-Israeli sentiment. So the Egyptians are not crazy about this idea at all. This is a very bad situation for them. And I think there's a frustration on their end, of course, that some of their considerations and concerns, legitimate security concerns, are not being considered in Washington in the same manner that Israel's concerns are currently being taken into consideration.
Let's talk about the U.S. role in this. And you've been critical of the administration's. I mean, it has seemed to me that Biden's foreign policy has been largely, let's just pretend things aren't happening in certain places and maybe it'll go away for the most part. That's not happening, obviously, here. What do you make when you, and I think you've written, it is, speaking of this administration, aside from the moral bankruptcy of calling for restraint, and we know that—
Not calling for restraint.
Excuse me, yes, of not calling for restraint. And we know that it's been reported that there were specific sort of phrases around the concept of restraint that the State Department has been specifically prevented from using, which is rare, frankly. I mean, I don't recall a time where the U.S. didn't at least, feign some notion of restraint. But you write, it's the strategic malpractice of giving Israel carte blanche to act as it wishes, despite knowing and understanding the tremendous risk that Israel's unrestrained actions in Gaza can drag Washington into a wider regional war that neither serves the interest of U.S. nor Israel. Talk about that, because it seems that to the extent that things have really, particularly with Gaza, it seems to me that starting with the Bush administration was the first administration to not function as the ballast against the worst of Israel's inclinations. And prior to that, there was some role of the U.S., acting as a restraint on the Israeli government that the Israeli government could, sort of fend off the most sort of hawkish impulses that it had. Now, I don't think the Israeli government's interested in that, but certainly the U.S. has stopped playing that role. Really, it feels like for at least 20 years now. But talk about Biden's reluctance or refusal to do that. It seems to be very, certainly short-sighted. But and aside from the moral implications, from strategic implications, walk us through that.
Yeah, I wrote a piece in the New York Times a couple of months ago, 2-3 months ago, about how the United States, by and large, not just in this arena, but by and large, have given up on the idea of being an honest broker. In this specific issue, we shifted from wanting to be seen as an honest broker to actually shunning the idea. Politically, it didn't look good for politicians to be an honest broker. They were pressured to be seen as Israel's ally in this. And that's truly how we have acted in this arena, in the sense of trying to pave the way for the Israelis to pursue their interests or how they define it, rather than necessarily thinking, okay, what does this do to the larger objective that we say that we have, which is to achieve a two-state solution. This deference, decade-long, to the Israelis on this issue is a key reason as to why the prospects for a two-state solution are next to nil, and has been next to nil for quite some time right now. Because this has enabled the Israelis to continue to create facts on the ground, expand settlements, etc., and make any type of a continuous Palestinian state more or less possible, while at the same time creating a massive political obstacle to close down those Israeli settlements now as they have become facts on the ground. So in this context, the Biden administration has gone very far in trying to show as much support for Israel as possible, which I think to a certain extent is quite understandable because of the horrific attack that Israel suffered at the hands of Hamas. But I think it is a combination of putting very little pressure, if any, on the Israelis to, for instance, even things such as making sure that what Israel does is within the confines of international law. The way the administration is doing it is that they're talking about international law and Israel in the same speech. They say that democracies follow international law, but they never say Israel has to follow international law in order to have America's. That message may be implicit, but I think it's actually significant value to make that explicit, because we want, on the one hand, the Iranians and Hezbollah to show restraint and not enter this arena, to do so without at the same time being clear that the United States is also doing something to make sure that Israel is showing restraint, I don't think is a winning strategy. I think if we had a much clearer message to the Israelis that they have to follow international law, they too have to show restraint. The fact that they have been subjected to what likely is war crimes by Hamas in terms of kidnapping civilians and children, etc., does not justify or give a free hand for Israel itself to commit war crimes through collective punishment. I think a message of that nature may have been politically more costly for Biden, but would have been far more effective in ensuring that this does not escalate into a larger war. That very likely would also suck the U.S. into it. And this is where I think it's particularly problematic to see how the administration has instructed diplomats not to talk about ending the bloodbath, ending the violence, calling for a ceasefire, calling for de-escalation. These are languages or terms that the State Department no longer is essentially permitted to use. Early in the conflict, the State Department had issued 2 tweets in which it talked about ceasefire and de-escalation. The State Department deleted those tweets. And then we saw also how the White House spokesperson treated members of Congress who had done, again, something very natural. They're seeing this horrible violence and they're asking for a ceasefire and a de-escalation. And they were called, I think, repugnant or reprehensible for having done so. That's a very, very odd situation for us to be in, a position for us to take if our objective is to actually make sure that this violence ends and that it doesn't escalate into a larger war.
I mean, it really does feel like the Biden administration has about a 13-month horizon in terms of what their strategy is here, specifically to get to the other side of the elections. And do you think that the Biden administration, I mean, I may be wrong, but it really does feel like this is almost wholly driven by domestic politics in terms of the Biden administration's response. There is nothing, I don't think it's consistent with I don't think it's consistent with U.S. foreign policy to not even mouth the words restraint, other than like these domestic politics. But do you think that the Biden administration misunderstood the domestic situation in this country in terms of like how that would be received? Because it feels like they've had to sort of tack back to, call for a little bit more restraint. I mean, it's a little bit less implicit.
It is a little bit less implicit. And I think that perhaps hopefully, there's a bit of a recognition that if they calculated that this position is such a big political win for them or politically beneficial or less costly, that the calculation may not have been as clear-cut as they thought. I think that if we start seeing a tremendous amount of violence in Gaza and suffering, and we are all increasingly seeing other Western countries starting to issue much stronger statements, then it's also going to be more difficult for the United States to stand increasingly alone in not calling for a ceasefire, not calling for an end to violence. Keep also in mind of how this plays out in the Ukraine context, in which a lot of countries in the global South were very, very negative to the idea that the Ukraine war was not just a war between 2 countries over a border, an infected conflict, but it was actually about the future of the rules-based order. That this was about whether we live in a country of law or in a world of laws, or if it's might makes right. Well, in this situation, it is quite shocking that the State Department has been forbidding its diplomats and spokespeople to even use the language of restraint, acting within international law, et cetera, et cetera. In the eyes of a lot of countries in the global South, this is exactly what they expected. They were so cynical because they thought that the arguments about rule of law is just something that is being used in this specific case because it serves the interests of the United States and Ukraine and Europe. but it will not be applied consistently, and it will certainly not be applied in countries in which the United States' sympathies lies with an actor that is acting outside of the realm of international.
All right. Well, lastly, I guess, are there any other sort of players that we should be watching for what they may or may not do that might have wider implications in terms of broadening this out regionally?
I think one other thing that we are likely going to see more of, we've seen a little bit, is that we may also end up having an explosion in the West Bank. The West Bank is controlled by the Palestinian Authority. That's not where Hamas is strong or is having the type of a governing capacity. But tensions there were already rising because of the expansion of settlement, because of how settlers have been attacking Palestinians, as well as Palestinians, in some cases, attacking Israelis. So tension had already been brewing there. It's likely going to get much worse, particularly as the fighting in Gaza intensifies. And again, there's so many unknown factors. It's so difficult to control so many of these different variables. It makes it extremely explosive. And in that context, not to be more active in calling for restraint and de-escalation, to me, is just an extremely dangerous strategy, particularly mindful of the fact that the manner in which the Biden administration has moved troops into the Mediterranean, et cetera, it's going to put pressure on itself to intervene militarily if things get much worse.
Right. The ease in which it can be done at that point lowers the threshold for what the expectations are of people of the U.S. Trita Parsi, Executive Vice President at the Quincy Institute for Responsible Statecraft. Thanks so much for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
All right, folks. We are back. Sam Seder, Emma Vigland on the Majority Report. A couple of IMs, and then we will head into the fun half. My issue with the interview is that there is an assumption that should Israel invade, it's a fait accompli, that Hamas would be wiped out or at least significantly weakened. I wholly disagree. Hamas is essentially a political movement. Political solutions would weaken it. Like with the PLO and Fatah were weakened by accepting Oslo and its after effects. Hamas has the tunnel system in the wasteland that Israel has created. I wouldn't be so sure that an invasion wouldn't be a complete disaster for a conscript army like Israel's. John Elmer has spoken about this on the Electronic Intifada. Well, I will tell you this. The much of the leadership of Hamas is not in Gaza. It's in Turkey. It's in Qatar. Mm-hmm. It may be in other countries. The tunnel system, I think the idea would be, they would just literally blow up everything in northern Gaza. I think what they could do is diminish the weapons that Hamas has and its ability to send rockets into Israel. But yes, I agree that I don't. That was the point that I was trying to make, is that you're not going to. There's no evidence that you're going to do anything other than restart the clock. Militant apathy. The Saudis don't give a crap about the Palestinians either. True, of course.
Of course they don't. They were just circumventing brokered by the Trump administration with the Abraham Accords. For all, they have to give a nod because the rest of the Arab world supports Palestinians.
The popular sentiment.
But yeah, MBS is not that concerned with popular sentiment.
I mean, Omar Shakir, I think yesterday said on the program, there was an attempt by all the parties in that region to just simply pretend that the Palestinians don't exist anymore.
Yeah.
And lie to all of them. Knott says, thank you so much, Sam and Emma, for these interviews, because I'm able to learn about not only history, but current events. Okay, you're welcome. We're now watching the vote for the speakership.
Jeffries.
It is Jordan and Jeffries seem to be getting the most amount of votes. Do we know how many Do we know how many are in the chamber? Is it 432? Did we determine that? Okay. So there are 220 Republicans.
Caston.
There are 212 Democrats. One of the strategies that we've heard is that there's going to be an attempt to
Castro of Texas.
to vote present. Now, if you vote present, what you do is you drop the threshold. Right now, the threshold 232 divided by 2 is 432 divided by 2 is 216. That means that you need to get 217 to win. This is not like the motion to vacate. There's an actual election going on here. You need 217 to win.
Who voted others? They've already lost 2 then.
So Don Bacon of Nebraska voted for Kevin McCarthy. and
Okay,
Lori
so
Chavez DeRemer, who's a
he
freshman
can
from Oregon,
afford
voted
now to lose only 3 votes, and he's lost 2 in this round. Now, it's theoretically they could vote again, right? They could just keep voting.
It would be like January,
Right.
You know,
15 rounds of
it would
voting.
be like January. They're voting to elect the
Right.
speaker. And Ken Buck missed his vote, so he has not voted yet.
Okay, but that
So he'll come back. So at the end, they'll call
Okay.
out missing votes. So he
Okay.
did not.
Did he pull the fire alarm?
Now, let's be clear. If they were to vote present, that would drop the threshold. They cannot drop the threshold below 213 because if they drop the threshold below 213, Jeffries could become the speaker. Theoretically, Jeffries could become the speaker if the threshold was a little bit higher and there were 1 or 2 defections from Republicans to Jeffries. I doubt that would happen. I wouldn't be so sure if it was on the other foot. If the shoe was on the other foot, I wouldn't doubt that would happen. And I've said that in the past, and people have been talking about it for 8 years, as far as I can tell.
Did something just happen? There was some rumbling, yeah. Did someone just vote for Jeffries that...
Craig. Jeffries.
We're going to follow this until this round, and then we'll head to...
the fun half?
The fun half.
Crawford. Jordan. Crenshaw. Jordan. Crockett.
So Chavez, there's 2 against McCarthy, as you said. 2 against, or 2 for McCarthy, 2 meaning against Jordan. Chavez, DeRemer, I don't even know who that representative is.
She's a freshman from Oregon.
Is she one of the 18?
Yes, she's in a Biden district in Oregon. Yeah.
So just keeping track of this alphabetically.
And Don Bacon is as well. Bacon in Nebraska is also in a Biden district.
So that's 2 Biden district defections on the Republican side. Lori Chavez DeRemer in Oregon, Don Bacon in Nebraska, as you said, Bradley.
Gus Barakis has not voted. Do we know how he...
Bill Rackus is a Jordan supporter. He's the one missing.
Bill Rackus is missing.
Yes.
Okay.
So he won't be in the chamber until tonight.
Ken Buck hasn't voted.
And he left.
We're waiting on Duarte in alphabetical order.
And Diaz-Balart, who's a anti-McCarthy. He's a McCarthy supporter. Diaz-Balart from Florida.
Okay. Duarte in California 13 is next up on the alphabetical potential defections.
Jeffries. Desagne. Jeffries. Desjardins. Jordan. D'Esposito. Zelton.
Lee Zeldin. Well, that's it for Jordan is done now, right?
So Anthony, yes, he would need. So this is 3 separate votes. Bill Rackus is absent. So
Scalise.
And if Buck,
wait a second.
Scalise.
And yes,
Diaz-Balart.
Diaz-Balart. So this is it.
This is it.
Jordan's done.
Yep.
Jordan's
At
done in
least
this
on
round.
this round
so
of
the first round
voting,
of voting, yeah.
he is done. And so let's take a break, and we'll head into the fun half, and we will be able to give you the final tallies. And then the question becomes,
why Lee Zeldin?
I think D'Esposito, who's a New York freshman. I think maybe he might have been. I think he replaced Zeldin, so maybe he was like, my guy Zeldin. I don't know. It's like writing in your dad for president. It's so stupid.
It's exactly.
I was hoping that maybe I would get a vote. Now I have not actively campaigned.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna. I'm not going to talk out of turn. There's been some phone calls I've been making with some of my friends across the aisle in the Republican Party, and it turns out no votes for me. So, but Jim Jordan is at this point toast. We just had Jake Ellazey vote for for. Now, who is that? That's for.
Did Elsie
voted not for Jordan?
Yeah, he's also he's a freshman from Texas. Jake.
Who did he vote for? Some other.
He voted for Mike Garcia, the California representative.
Oh, I see.
So
okay.
we're just really
that's
we're
just more to like That's like I'm voting for the Easter Bunny.
Exactly.
Essentially.
Right.
I don't know why Scalise, I guess, is still theoretically a candidate, and Kevin McCarthy is a candidate. The others that we just referred to as others, at least on the New York Times. And
if all the Democrats hold the line.
Now let's just be clear. Jeffries can't win without Republican votes,
right?
Because you need to hit the over 50% of present voters.
It's not a plurality; it's a majority.
It's not a plurality; it's a majority, unless people vote present, in which case they're not counted as actually being present, which is a weird way of phrasing it. But if those 5 were to have voted present, then we're in the territory of like Jeffries could win.
But zero. It seems like they're not going to do that.
It seems like the reason why they're not doing that. I mean, because look, we know that Zeldin is not going to win. And so the reason why someone votes for Lee Zeldin is because they're afraid that if too many of us vote present and we're not coordinated on this, then Jeffries could win.
Right.
By mistake.
Right.
Geez, these Republicans have Jim Jordan in a headlock.
It's true. Jordan has been counted out and will come back in the next round.
See if he taps out.
And attempt to...
pin down some more members?
Yes, and regain his footing. And incidentally,
wait,
folks,
Gates just stood up. Gates voted for Jordan. Yeah.
As a style guide, I just want folks to know that we will never refer to Jim Jordan again without using verbs that are also interchangeable for wrestling matches.
Yes.
So the this round is almost over. It's almost timed out. And Jordan will have another chance to put his hat in the ring.
The other
Andrew Garbarino from Long Island also voted for Lee Zeldin.
Is Zeldin still alive?
He's not even. He's
not even in Congress.
No, but I mean, maybe you don't have to be in Congress.
Yeah, it's
to
true.
Be,
it's the Trump speakership argument.
Jimenez just voted for Kevin McCarthy.
Yes, Jimenez is a real ardent McCarthy.
I mean, and this is relevant at this point is only because it gives us a sense of Jordan's opportunity in round 2. And I guess there's also a question is like, how much patience is there going to be for 15 rounds of voting? And it could be one of those things. And Tony Gonzalez just voted for Scalise. So we're up to 8 other votes. This is relevant because the likelihood of Jordan winning in round 2 diminishes with the greater number of people it is that switch. Now, with that said, we don't know. They just had the camera on Jim Jordan, and now he may know like these guys all they get the first round where they vote who they want to, but like. I mean, honestly, you're voting for Lee Zeldin in the first. Like, what are you signaling to anybody? What are you signaling to anybody?
And if some reports are right here, Eric Michael Garcia over at the Independent, Kay Granger, who is the Appropriations Committee chair, like she's like you wouldn't really expect her to go out of line with whatever the conference is doing.
Right.
She just voted for Scalise. Like that's a defection I don't think anyone was really anticipating or like would think would happen. A committee chair.
Maybe she was one of the Scalise strongholds who reportedly, quote, according to the New York Times, wept openly when he took his name out of the conversation in their private meetings. But these people are weird.
Majority Report wardrobe coordinator says Diaz Ballard with the takedown, 2 points. I have to remember that from my junior high wrestling days.
I'm running up. I went to an all girls school. I don't really have a ton of high school wrestling in my lexicon.
I just remember there was this kid who I was friendly with, was a couple years older than me, and he would just always come on and like at the beginning of practice, he always like, I want to try out my figure 4. And then would just like, it was the most painful thing I've ever experienced. And I couldn't say no because it was like, you know, you get an upperclassman, like, you know, you're like, oh, okay.
Tap out, Sam.
And you
That's why I gravitated
like
towards basketball.
That's why you had to just pretend like you weren't in pain.
Little less pain, little less
All right.
homoeroticism.
So look, we see 9 votes. You know, there's no way for us to know if these 9 had said, have already said to Jordan, I'll vote for you in round 2. But if they don't vote for him in round 2, I think that he's not getting it.
Which is interesting because mostly, most of the reporting heading into this day was very optimistic about Jordan's chances.
Again, like I think it's very possible that there could be a second round vote. Like I'm not. You know, I don't know if I understand fully what that's about. Like, what's the value for someone who's reluctant? If you're a frontline Democrat and you're, Republican, and you're reluctant to vote for Jim Jordan, I don't know that there's much value to you to go back to your constituents and say, yeah, but I only voted for him on the 3rd ballot. Right. Like, I just don't know that really is...
Yeah, but what else are they going to do? Well, they're literally between a rock and a hard place. If they don't vote for Jordan, they're going to get primaried, right, by the Republicans. That seems to be the threat. If they do vote for him, they're going to get screwed in their Biden districts. So they're trying to put lipstick on a pig here.
But not everyone is following the same rules because, like, Brian Fitzpatrick, who was a Republican from Pennsylvania, is in like the most like Biden district, and he voted for Jordan right now.
Well,
I guess I just don't understand
they're all making
everyone's
different
calculating differently. It's not a block formation so far.
Well, they may also be aware of like just how do I have because all of these all of these people we're talking about, they have a list of 4 or 5 people that they are afraid is going to run against them. The county supervisor might run against me, who's a Republican, or the comptroller, or that the car salesman who's going to self-finance himself. That's what's going on. In terms of their...
Jeffrey's just voted for himself.
Jeffrey just voted for himself. Applauded.
Oh my God. All right, enough.
But you know what? They're doing this because
they're trolling.
They're trolling. This is...
We should put this up.
It's pretty funny.
Now it's over. All right. Well, they just gave
half of them
Jeffries
are still
a
laughing. You can see them all laugh.
Yeah.
Jeffries.
Yeah, let's just hear it. Let's do this out. We've got I guess there's another 100 votes, right?
Yeah, it's not worth it. He's not getting this round, so let's just go into the
We're going to go into the fun half, ladies and gentlemen. You can join us there by becoming a member at jointhemajority.report.com, and when you do, you not only get the free half free of commercials, but you also get the fun half. And now the Republicans are giving a standing ovation for Jim Jordan for voting for himself. This is like one of those things like where you, it's honestly like, and you learn this by the time you get to your second kid, like, and the kid takes a poop, you don't have to applaud. It's okay. It's probably better that you don't.
Yeah.
But voting for themselves, they're doing that in earnest. At least the Democrats did it ironically.
Right.
Folks, you can help support this show by becoming a member at jointhemajority.report.com. Yeah, I said all this stuff earlier. Also, don't forget justcoffee.coop, fair trade coffee, tea, or chocolate. Use the coupon code majority, get 10% off. Emma, what's happening on ESVN?
We gave a little ALCS, NLCS preview. We also broke down the defensive kind of stronghold games in the NFL last week with the Eagles and 49ers toppled. No longer any undefeated teams left. I continued my love fest with C.J. Stroud, my favorite rookie in the NFL, and who had a lot of racist assumptions about him leading into the draft that have now been shattered, which is fun for the whole family. YouTube.com/ESPN show.
Matt.
Yeah, tonight talking to two nurses about the nurses strike in New Jersey and some other stuff. Patreon.com/Left Reckoning. Also, patrons for Left Reckoning at Patreon.com/Left Reckoning will get part 2 of our Communist Manifesto reading series on proletarians and communists.
646-257-3920. See you in the fun half.
You are in for it.
All right, folks. 646-257-3920. See you in the fun half.
Are you ready?
Who sent us
this? Alpha males are back. Boys back. And the alpha males are back.
Just as delicious as you could imagine.
The alpha males are back. Boys back. And the alpha males are back.
Just want to degrade the white man.
Alpha males are back.
I take all of it to my throat.
Alpha males are back.
Snowflake says what?
The alpha males are back.
You are a madman.
And the alpha males are back.
Oh no, Sam Cedar! What a fucking nightmare!
Bring back DJ Danner.
Yeah, or a couple of them. Just put them in rotation.
DJ Danner.
Well, the problem with those is they're like 45 seconds long, so I don't know if they're enough of a break.
That's fucking nonsense. You see white people doing drugs, they look worse than normal white people, and all white people look disgusting.
And the alpha males,
psych, fuck them.
Snowflake says what? Snowflake says what?
A hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank. Okay, I'm making stupid money. Hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank.
All lives matter. Have you tried doing an impression on a college campus?
I think that there's no reason why reasonable people across the divide can't all agree with this. Psych.
And the alpha males are back. And the Africans are black African. And the alpha males are black. And the Africans are back.
When you see Donald Trump out there, doesn't a little part of you think that America deserves to be taken over by jihadists? Keeping it 100. Can't knock the hustle. Come on, fuck them. Things I do for the bigger game plan. By the way, it's my birthday. Happy birthday to me, Jew boy.
I have a thought experiment for you.
And the alpha males are back. Africans are black. Alpha males are black. Africans are back.
Come on. Someone needs to pay the price for blasphemy around here.
I am a total pussy.
We are back. Sam Cedar, Emma Vigeland in a moment on the Majority Report. We're catching up on the tail end of the vote. Jim Jordan, let's pop this up, has lost 13 votes. There have been 13 defections from his attempt.
Jordan.
This is...
Mast.
And how many did McCarthy lose in that first round?
Jeffries.
I
don't think it was this way.
Jeffries.
I don't think we're in a situation. It feels like we are not in a situation where
McCall.
where
Jordan.
Jim Jordan is going to be able to get a second round of voting here. And the reason why I look at that is like the frontline New York.
McClintock.
This is not like, I hate that guy, he's a jerk, but okay on the second ballot. This looks like there's enough of these New York Congress people who are Republicans. How many do we have now? 4, right? Lawler.
Lawler, D'Esposito, Lilota, and I'll double check if there's one more, but 3 for sure.
Jeffries.
And they're voting this way because they're afraid to vote for Jim Jordan. And so it is unlikely this is going to change in round 2. Presumably, they've already gone to these people and said, look, if you don't vote for Jordan, if anybody has the ability to do this, if you don't vote for Jordan, I'm not going to support you.
So on the first ballot, McCarthy still got over 200, 203.
Okay. So it's possible that he still may. Here's Molinaro. Is about to vote. We'll see how Molinaro. He votes for Jim Jordan, which is interesting. New York 19th.
He announced he would.
He announced he would, but I mean, as you start to see the rest of your New York caucus not vote for him, now maybe he feels secure in not voting, in voting for Jordan because he knows Jordan's not going to make it through, so he'll never have to account for that vote theoretically. It's one thing to say you voted for Jim Jordan. Jim Jordan's been this disaster for the past year, and now he's House Speaker, versus you voted for Jim Jordan, even though, McHenry has been the ongoing, and I have a feeling that's what they're going to end up doing. I think they're going to end up voting to provide McHenry with a, sort of a 15-day renewable option on being Speaker of the House with limited powers or something. But again, we could get into the next round. We will check back in to see, when the bell rings and who's standing at the end of this,
right?
In the ring, and then when they get, if they're going to get back into this ring, and wrestle around and see who's going to be the Speaker of the House. Or maybe they send Jim Jordan to the showers, and we don't know. Maybe they'll have to bring in the medical team to examine Jim Jordan after this.
Maybe.
In the showers.
I want to make more jokes, but don't know if I should. So
maybe we should.
Maybe we should just cease.
Bow out.
Yeah. Maybe tap out.
Tap out. This one. Blow the whistle. Throw the towel and step out of the ring for a moment for that. Can't help it. Happy Newsday Tuesday, everyone. Left is best, says Cho on the IM. 400 blowing me. Newsday Tuesday. Hope everyone here is doing well. Torque on the IM. Michael Oren, former Israeli ambassador to the U.S., appeared on Nicole Wallace's show yesterday and openly advocated for an Israeli preemptive attack on Hezbollah. Oh, that should work out well. Said that Hamas can be dealt with later, that Hezbollah has 100,000 fighters, and right now Israel has 350,000 reservists and a standing army of 100,000. When we spoke yesterday to Omar Shakir, he said this is like one of the concerns that people have, is that you have now, you've called up these 300,000, you have them. Why don't you use them? Now, I cannot imagine that there is, just because you have these 300,000 reservists, that you're going to be able to go on essentially a preemptive war with them. I don't think that's the case, but we'll see.
I hesitate. I want to just say this and couch it because we still need more like confirmation, 100%. But at least people on the ground in Gaza are saying that Israel has bombed the Baptist hospital in Gaza.
Wouldn't be the first hospital, right?
But this is in Gaza City, and it wouldn't be. But there was apparently I don't know.
Is that the one that
I
they
don't
have the ambulances in front of? I mean, I saw one hospital that the doctors were like, "Hey, go leave the ambulance running with their lights on, so they know this is occupied hospital."
I mean, I also saw the Washington Post, right, that hospital workers are drinking IV bags because there's no water.
Yeah, Abby Martin said that too.
Horrible. Well, we'll wait until we get some confirmation on that.
Yep.
Mike O'Connor's beer hall putsch. I was 11 years old when 9/11 happened. Is this what the discourse was like back then too? There was less dissent. There was less dissent. I mean, the idea of even bringing up the notion. Now, to be fair, it wasn't a month until we invaded Afghanistan, and I believe it started first week of October. People can look that up and correct me. There was a state of shock that the country was in for a week, and to be fair, also, I was in New York, and certainly in New York, we were in a complete state of shock. I think 4 or 5 days later, I had to evacuate my apartment on Park Avenue South and 28th or 9th Street because we heard rumor that the Empire State Building was going to be attacked.
Right.
And, that's 6 blocks north and 2 avenues west. And, if that fell, that's where people are in a state of shock. But rather shortly, there was, basically a lot of calls for vengeance and attacking. And I don't recall anyone publicly questioning an invasion of Afghanistan. There was, I think there were some people who were saying this is a police action. They are criminals and we should go after them. But to launch a full-scale invasion and occupation of Afghanistan. But rather quickly, it turned into, we will, almost like it was a joint sort of we get Osama bin Laden and we rebuild Afghanistan from what the Soviets did. I mean, there was literally we are not going to do exactly what we did to Afghanistan. It was specifically sort of sold that way.
But that though, the fact that there is more dissent growing, and it's the only thing that's giving me hope in this instance, is I really am seeing more and more people begin to reckon with this. It's made easier by the fact that it didn't happen in the U.S.
Without a doubt.
It's hard to discern how much progress we've made since 9/11 because of the disparity in context.
Yeah, but I will also say what's fascinating, and I listen to radio in the morning to hear the bottom and the top of the hour of AP's report, and it was so hard to reckon with this. The report this morning was, Biden to come over to Israel to show the greatest amount of support for the attack on, the attack by Hamas on the Israelis, which was they said the largest attack, such attack. I don't know if they were explicit about on Jews since the Holocaust. And then they said, and Israel has been reportedly bombing the South where they told 1 million people to evacuate. And it's sort of the further you get out and the more Palestinians that are killed, we're up to 3,000 plus at this point.
A third of them are children.
And the more that you hear that, it becomes harder to sort of reconcile. What is it exactly that's being supported here? What is, what exactly is being supported? the further you get out, the more Palestinian deaths, and you know, we never hear what the equivalent of Palestinian deaths would be in this country. I have no idea. But I've seen the calculation where people make it in terms of like, had U.S. been struck, it would be like 40,000 people had been killed or something. I don't know, maybe more. But that's, you know, but in terms of like comparing, you know, 9/11 to now, there, in some ways, there is a greater amount of viciousness and also a greater amount of dissent.
It's also because of the geopolitical situation. I mean, the United States is very like insulated from violence in except when we inflict it for the most part on other countries because of our, you know, our size, the fact that we have two allies to the north and the south of us. We are not susceptible to a ground invasion from Canada or from Mexico. And we're not a nation in the Middle East that is heavily militarized and also is occupying in an apartheid system over 2 million people who are becoming more radicalized by the day. And so, like, the context of how they respond to an attack is very different than, I think, any context that Americans can graft onto domestically, because it's just not, it's not the same. It's the proximity of Palestinians to Israel. I mean, again, like the music festival was happening 3 miles from the border fence. So that just creates such a different context that I think it's difficult for average people to fully understand.
Nutty Dan writes, I just want to let you know that Sam Harris' recent podcast said, we have to acknowledge Palestinians have a greater culture of violence. Really almost forgot about how much of a repugnant racist he is. This could revive his career in politics. I mean, it is such a twisted thing to say. I guess I would want a little bit more, like, they have a culture of being able to catch bombs much better.
Culture of having their power and water turned off.
Yeah. They it's so amazing too. It's just how is the just look at a graph of who's killed more over the past 2 decades, Israel or Palestine. Who has the culture of violence that we're talking about here?
Well, you know, it's not a culture of violence if it comes from an airplane.
Oh yeah, it doesn't matter. And
culture of security.
I again, for Americans not fully understanding the context, I also don't think Americans can understand. And I saw this point was made by Murtaza Hussein, what it's like to be bombed. Like, an attack in the way that Hamas attacked that music festival is actually quite relevant to our experience. And like, we've had mass shootings at musicals or at music festivals, like the Las Vegas one.
Pulse nightclub.
Our Pulse nightclub. I think people can understand that more. Don't think people in America have a great understanding of what it's like to burn to death on the inside and outside via white phosphorus. Or what it's like to live in an open air prison and not have clean water in the same way.
The Gaza Health Ministry is now reporting at least 500 dead in that bombing of that hospital. Again,
as Biden's traveling there.
Yeah.
So, never mind. I thought that maybe we were making some progress. Never mind. No. Honestly.
I mean, it's not nearly enough. And like the extent that there are good and like people being brave and speaking out against the Israeli government, the shame is like it's too little, too late.
Tommy, I am begging you guys to improve your call-in line. It's very inconsistent as to when lines are on. Well, they are on after I say we're opening the phones. The queue
Complain
fills
about
up.
Phones one more time.
The queue fills up instantly. And half the time y'all pick known callers. Okay. half the time we do not pick known callers. I recognize 509 and
308 is Kowalski.
Then 308. And I cannot, there's no way for me to say to people and have them listen, don't call, except if your name is Tommy on the IM. I can't do that, but I'll tell you what. The phone lines are not open yet. I've got to call in. And if your name is Tommy, I want you to call in right now. The phone lines are open. Phone lines are open.
The context of this, Sam, is one Thursday. I think in my entire doing of hosting of Thursdays, I didn't take calls because we went so late in the first half, and I got a complaint, and it's like bothered me more than any like insults I've received from any right wingers online. Because damn it, do I try to take calls? I do.
Yeah, I mean, it's not.
I do.
There's no. If anybody has a perfect system for this, let me know. Because we'll do it. Calling from a 406. 406. Where are you calling from? Who's this? Where are you calling from?
It's Haley.
Haley?
I think.
Are you?
Okay,
would you
yeah,
consider
I'm
yourself
from
a regular
Montana.
caller, Haley?
So I have been thinking about calling in for a while, but I get really nervous. So sorry
So far, you're
if I
doing
was-
great. So far, you're doing great.
Okay. So I work for a company that does market research.
Oh, Haley, where are you from?
Oh, I'm from Montana.
Okay, Montana. Okay.
Mhm. So I work for a company that does market research. Sorry, what?
No, go ahead.
Oh, I work for a company that does market research, and we do political surveys. And so I don't actually get to know like who is sponsoring the surveys. But with this recent attack that happened on the 6-year-old boy and the landlord, I just felt like a need to call in about these, because generally the people who will actually sit and respond to these surveys are people who are like sitting at home watching Fox News or listening to the radio. They're always generally older people. Occasionally younger people will do it, but for the most part, I get a lot of people who are easily, it seems to me that they're easily persuaded by the questions that we ask. The questions aren't like yes or no. They're very leading. So I guess I just wanted to bring some awareness to the fact that like these polls that we see on the news when they say like Trump is ahead in the polling, they aren't given questions that are able to sorry. You're not really allowed to say like your own opinion. It's just very leading. So one of the questions that I have a really hard time with that is in almost every poll right now is like, who do you think should be voted for that's going to protect our children from gender change surgeries? And I guess, I don't know. I'm like feeling a little silly for calling in.
No, but I guess if I get your sense is like you don't have like it's one thing to say like if I cared about gender changing surgery for kids and thought that was an important issue, and I thought who's going to stop it? Maybe it's Ron DeSantis, but I don't. But there's no option for me not to respond. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Yeah, it's just, they're all very leading, and it just feels like there isn't an option for people to give their true, unbiased opinion.
Right.
So that's just like an experience that I've had, and I just feel I don't know that they're going to start using the Palestine-Israel conflict in those questions. But I do feel like it's dangerous, and it's leading people to believe that there are problems going on out there that aren't.
Oh, I see what you're saying. It's like push polling is really what it's like in many respects.
Yeah.
Would you be inclined to vote for Jim Jordan if you knew that he was a molester? Now, of course, that's not true. He's not a sexual predator. He just protects sexual predators. But if I wanted to project the idea that he was, that would be the push poll I would put. Appreciate the call. Interesting.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I think the voting just ended.
All right, the voting just ended, and it is 200 for Jim Jordan, 212 for Jeffries, Hakeem Jeffries, and then 20 people voted for other people. And Jim Jordan keeping a smile on his face. Kevin McCarthy with a little bit of a smirk, like ha 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 ha. And the Democrats, of course, are laughing hysterically at this point. It's unclear what happens next. There's a second speaker vote expected. We will tune back in when that happens. That's going to be the really telling one. I can't imagine you go 2 votes and then decide like, oh, now I'm going to vote for Jordan. Although maybe he gets it on the third. I just can't imagine that 15 people are going to switch their votes after like 3 things, but we'll see. Calling from a 773 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, how you doing? This is Joshua from Chicago.
Joshua from Chicago.
How you guys doing?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
I'm good. Just want to, thank you guys for, your coverage of the conflict. I feel like you guys are giving, a lot of good information, but also, tying it to, heart, emotion, and things like that. So I just really want to commend you guys for that.
Thank you.
But a bit of combination of levity and self deprecation. So I was on Facebook a couple weeks ago, and I saw like a memory, and one of my friends from grad school had sent me this article on her post, and it was like this writer basically like talking about. Have you guys ever heard that quote? I think it might be from Marilyn Monroe, if I'm not mistaken, but it's a quote like, if you can't take me at my worst, you don't deserve me at my best, like something like that. And I've always loved that quote. Like I don't know, I just find it a little bit like, wait, what? That doesn't make sense. Like, no, like if you're bad, just like be better. And so my friend sent me the article, and so after I read it, I'm like, yes, like, this is exactly what I think. And fast forward to now, I look at the author of the article, and lo and behold, it was written by Matt Walsh.
Ooh.
I was like, wow, that's crazy.
So the lack of self-reflection. So it's about lack of self-reflection and complete entitlement. So that makes total sense,
basically,
right? Yeah.
Yeah. So I just thought that was just like a little funny story, just to lighten the mood, a little bit. Also wanted to ask, and I mean, I apologize, I can't remember the context, but like, I think so. There was you guys did a segment. I believe you were talking about the one of the strikes, and you were kind of fired up about it, and you said something like, and sorry, it's going to sound weird out of context, but I just don't remember the context.
One of the strikes.
You were like
labor strikes, or
one of the labor strikes. and you were like fired up about something someone said, and you were like, clip that shit. And I was like, that sounds like that should be a T-shirt. So
clip that shit.
That's my that's my T-shirt idea, or a picture of Sam getting in a finger four or something.
Gotcha.
Very well, I can't promise anything on that, Accord, but all right, appreciate the call, Joshua.
All right, hope you guys have a good one.
Thank you. You too.
J. Lou, Jal Ayu. I don't know how anyone is going about their day. Normally, I'm literally shaking with rage. I haven't been able to do any work or sleep for more than a few hours since last Monday. The law firm I work at sent out an email with the subject line, Hamas attack on Israel last Friday. Not a single mention of Gaza or Palestinians. I'm so disgusted. I've genuinely started to applying elsewhere. I know a lot of people who are in that exact same boat. I mean, not working at a law firm, but who are, very, very upset. I think there's probably a wide range of opinions of people who are upset. But
I've felt
distressing.
I felt like my chest is going to cave in for 10 days. I haven't been able to sleep. I mean, I totally understand.
I feel for people who can't speak out either, because Joshua Frank, who's a Philly 76ers beat writer who I follow, got fired for speaking on behalf of Palestinians. It's bad out there.
Let's see. Take a call. Well, let's lighten the mood a little bit.
Okay.
Hey, you remember that guy, Michael Flynn? He was considered too insane to be in the military, and so Obama fired him. And then he got really pissed about it, and he accepted a contract from the Turkish government to essentially kidnap a Turkish dissident in this country, and didn't carry it out. But meanwhile was also working on the transition team and advising Donald Trump, and became his national security chief. The national security advisor. And then had to resign because all the agencies were like, this guy's completely out of his mind and also seems to be compromised. And then he went on to basically become this sort of
QAnon figure?
QAnon Christian nationalist. And, well, I got some good news. He's now cut an album. This is conservative rapper Jimmy Levy,
who we've seen before. They have crazy facial hair. They're sort of like rich, conservatives that are now rappers.
And conservative rapper Forgiato Blow.
So the only one I know at the top of my head in terms of conservative rappers, right? He just churns these things out. He's a content machine.
And of course, former National Security Advisor General Michael Flynn. Let's play this now.
Freedom from the shores of California all the way down to the Keys. Only he will bring us closer when we fall to our knees.
All right, pause it. Because I saw this and I'm like, this is funny, but wait, who made this? I thought the whole thing was AI.
Yeah, it had to be.
The whole thing is AI.
Because the voice is too robotic, but then you realize it's just the most auto-tune that's ever been applied to a human voice.
See, auto-tune, I just don't get. Aren't you just saying that we can't carry a tune?
No, that's precisely it. But typically, it doesn't sound quite so bad because you can approximate the pitch a little bit closer, so it doesn't require such a brute force program.
But it's honestly
right, they were give it your all.
They had the Mac Pros. They had the Mac Pros absolutely overheating trying to get.
But why do they even invite the people in? Just send us a picture. We'll do the clutch cargo thing. We don't actually need your voice because it doesn't. It sounds like a freaking right, because Alvin and the Chipmunks.
Well, that's the thing is autotune's kind of out of vogue because now you can actually get somebody's singing voice from their speaking voice using AI. Right?
Yeah.
And it's not great, but it's better than that.
Well,
so
I know. Honestly, just make it.
Let's go back. This is really important.
Do what old Hollywood did in the 1940s and stuff. Audrey Hepburn's not singing in My Fair Lady. They brought in somebody else who sang for her. Michael Flynn needs his.
Now, let me ask you this. There's a bunch of people in this. Do we know who all these people are, or are they just
No.
like randos?
They're nuts. They're like right-wing attention seekers.
I only recognize a few of them, like Forgiato, Jimmy Levy, Flynn, and then there's also Siggy Flicker, who is a former Real Housewife of New Jersey.
Okay.
Who lives at Mar-a-Lago.
And how was Laura Loomer not included in this? I don't understand. That seems like a travesty.
Maybe she has a solo. I don't know.
That seems like a travesty.
I mean, I don't think they could pay her the fee.
When
They can only
something's
get her on
this
single.
crazy and they don't invite Laura Loomer, it is really offensive in many ways. I think it's anti-Semitic.
I'm just picturing like a NASA space station and everything's going wrong and there's fuses blowing and stuff, just trying to make Michael Flynn's voice sound somewhat respectable.
Now, let's just be clear. I just want to address Tim Pool for a moment. We did not in any way change the audio quality to this. I just want to make that clear.
Our machine broke.
Did you skip ahead?
We went back a little bit.
Oh, okay, good.
We won't give up our freedom.
From the shores of California, all the way down to the Keys.
Only He will bring us closer when we fall to our knees.
And He'll
Daft
lift
Punk.
us from the ground so that everyone can see.
Yeah, everyone else is bad too.
That we never lost our freedom. It's in His glory.
But this auto-tune, you can hear it.
So bad.
Yeah.
Take all our money,
I don't really have it set right.
but you can't have our soul.
All right, this guy actually sings.
But everybody else sucks.
You cannot tell the difference between who's singing because it's so auto-tuned.
It all sounds like Daft Punk.
You cannot tell. Like, honestly, you close your eyes, you would not be able to know that it's a different person singing.
If I was an auto-tune guy, I'd be like, please re-record that because you're making our technology look bad. Like the only guy that can sing is the only person it works for. Everybody else just sounds like Daft Punk.
You know what? Honestly, all the auto-tune people who have any self-respect and who work in the music industry probably are like, I'm not touching this project. So they've got bottom of the barrel people. It's a brain drain in the
I can read some of
music
the. I can
industry.
read some of the credits here. We got Trump Latinos, Marcus Rogers, Mises, Jessica Sutta, Angela Stanton King, Forgiato Blow, General Michael Flynn, the 18th Director of the Defense Intelligence Agency, Big Nick, Liz Cronkin, Siggy Flicker, Zoe Levy. I assume that's Jimmy's sister. James McCroy Taylor, King Bao, Bobby Take Nap Sauce, Conservative Ant, Stella Escobedo, Grant Stinchfield. Okay, man, we gotta find the Stinchfield.
You know what I love? Somebody,
Where is he?
Somebody wrote in, it's their version of We Are the World. And it is. It's We Are the World of Insane
No,
People.
yeah, actually,
That's basically.
Iron Brown made fun of this on his stream and cut in the Bob Dylan in the We Are the World, like looking side to side.
I keep going. This is.
Wait, Bob Dylan like doesn't sing in that, right? He's just mouthing the
looking at-
words.
yeah.
Yes, yeah, that's funny.
We will all stick together and we'll never surrender. We won't give up our freedom. Oh,
You guys have the episode.
This is just so bizarre. It's like they're not even actually singing.
I know.
It's funny imagine them all lip syncing this to no.
Until we all just figure out that only God gives
I just love how Flynn is just basically a background character.
General Michael Flynn.
And they're all dancing to like a different song, it feels like.
That you're telling me they don't have rhythms? That's a shock.
I mean, I'm saying this is someone who, honestly,
Well, you're not
I
singing.
am like medically, like I was like of a medical condition. I have so little rhythm, and this is impressive even to me. All right, keep going here. Let's see.
Oh, I love when they do the clapping breakdown. That's how you know it's soulful. I bet Stinchfield was the rap breakdown.
Stinchfield's on the way left there. There he is. Sorry, I just saw him, but I don't think he sings at all in this. Go back and look on the way left in the front row. There's
I mean,
Stinchfield.
what's it take to not get a solo in this?
Right. Maybe he just had too much self-respect. Oh, wait. There he is.
There he is on the way left.
Way left.
Pause it.
Yeah.
That's him right there.
There we go. Zoom in.
Far left. Okay.
Go ahead. He comes up again here.
He seems mad.
There he is.
He's literally clapping like Steve Martin in The Jerk.
Like
it's like taking 4 beats to go like, yeah.
The harder he claps, the faster this will be over. The sooner we can take lunch.
Oh boy. That is unbelievable.
I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm on the verge of tears. It's so beautiful to see people coming together like that.
For freedom.
Yep.
Freedom. I can't even.
No, you can't be the robot because no human's voice sounds like that.
Like freedom. I can hang up.
I never thought we'd have like a more kind of weirdo right-wing nationalist song than what was that song that came out after 9/11 that everyone
it's Stick a Boot Up Your Ass. It's the American Way song.
No, the one I had to sing at my own like second grade frickin' no, it's Trump walks out to it all the time.
God Bless USA,
Lee
Greenwood.
Yeah.
So a few other things. Jessica Sutta, who's in this video, is a former member of the Pussycat Dolls, and James McCoy Taylor appeared on The Bachelorette a few years ago.
That place.
How did they get that guy?
Wait, I know who this guy is.
He went by James Taylor on the show. Yeah.
Oh, so it's
He's
James Taylor, but not the musical.
Not the musical one.
He was advertised as a musician on the show.
I'm your handyman.
Oh, I thought it was the other guy. One time in that show, they cast a guy who they knew had racist tweets on the season with the first black bachelorette for drama. So that shows pretty morally reprehensible.
We're the best country in the world.
Only God, no other king. Let the mighty eagle soar.
That was George W. Bush's sitting Attorney General. Sitting.
This country's far too young to die.
Yeah, he doesn't need auto-tune.
Yeah.
Nope.
We have one more Stinchfield appearance here.
Okay, let's get final thing of this.
Oh, nice.
Oh, they get to give everybody. Bobby takes naps.
I'm a comedian and a political commentator. I love that.
Wait. Go back. Wait. Go back. There's a CNN commentator on there?
No,
OAN. No, not
wait.
CNN.
No, wait. Go. Oh, OAN. I see. Okay, sorry.
I'm sorry.
Oh, no, go back.
Yeah, he
So
really
mad.
he was really happy to be there. I love having to put that I'm both a comedian and a political commentator. Like I can't really rely on one of those, but both of them together, I'm the
Tell me about
dual
it. It was
threat.
rough for a long time. I had to do that.
Dual threat, they say.
Well, it also forgives you the singing.
Mm-hmm.
What they really should have put is like not a singer on all of these people, even casually.
If he didn't have the text of his Grant Stinchfield host at Real America Voice, that would be a great still for like a meme.
Because, like, I mean, honestly, you know when Bernie did that spoken word thing, like 30
that was
or
dope.
40 years ago or whatever, he had the self-awareness to know he's not going to go out there and try to belt it out. But with auto-tune, you know, honestly, where's the bootstraps mentality for these right-wingers? If they can sing.
Now anyone can participate in singing.
Yeah, everybody gets an award.
Yeah.
Oh my God, what you get a medal?
By the way, that
up?
Matt Walsh thing that caller mentioned just a bit ago, I did look into that, and it starts off with him being upset that he got the baseball game ball one day at Little League, despite him not having a really good stat line that day, and it really confused him and upset him. So that was what that was about.
It confused him and upset him. Oh, let's do this Matt Walsh piece here. Matt Walsh there's a sense that now he is desperate for something to latch on to because he made his mark on the world by being an anti-trans bigot. And Ron DeSantis, when his campaign sort of sputtered out and he stopped saying things like woke and trying to ride some type of anti-trans bigotry into, even in the Republican primary, it didn't work. Matt Walsh was stuck with just a closet full of lumberjack shirts to prove that he's manly.
His gender affirming outfits.
And then with nothing to talk about. So here he is, and now he's got his banjo in the background there because he's trying to show his country. I'm rural dude, and you can tell because look at these shirts I've bought from wherever it was, whatever Land's End or wherever he's got his. Let's see what he's got to say.
And of course, we aren't colonizers just because we happen to live in the United States, but also we never should have accepted the premise that colonization.
Pause it for a second. I mean, what was the original name of the territories, Matt? You know history better than I. When this country, when white people landed and formed like some type of organization to where we were. What were those called?
The colonies.
Right. Right. The colonies.
How many of those were there?
The colonies. Interesting. Interesting. Okay. All right. But we were not colonizers here in this.
Well, he's trying. So this is the trick that these right wingers play all the time. Like we're talking about structures, America, 100%. Like right. But you're not a colonizer, Sam.
You're I personally, right.
You're not a colonizer, watcher of Matt Walsh's show. So any structural critique, you can just completely disavow it because otherwise it would be you have framed it now in your mind by watching Matt Walsh as a personal attack on you.
I mean, and literally this sort of thing where you're putting the sort of history of colonialism on just everyday people, even everyday white people. Like, of course, we know the relation of like Africans and Native Americans to the colonies, but also most of white people that actually did the work in like Virginia colonies or whatever often were indentured servitudes and impressed into service in the UK. Like literally just the British government's like, we need workers to go die after 10 years of growing cotton and tobacco in Virginia. Just pull them off the street. If they're criminals, or we can label them criminals, you can ship them on a boat and make them go be laborers. So like it was an elite project. It wasn't just like, oh, look at all these regular people from Europe doing this.
All right, go ahead.
And of course, we aren't colonizers just because we happen to live in the United States, but also we never should have accepted the premise that colonization is some sort of inherently bad, evil thing. It's actually a ludicrous premise. No matter what leftists meant when they say that they want to decolonize the West, the right should have opposed it on principle. That's because colonization, historically, has been a force for good throughout the world. It was the process of introducing the rule of law, public health, human dignity to certainly this entire hemisphere.
The idea that there were no sort of like laws or human dignity or public health among indigenous people. Like it was just, they are just walking around bumping into each other. Like animals.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he's saying. I mean, this is the exact same thing that Christian missionaries would say. Yeah. In fact, often they were the same people in many respects. The idea that he is trying to sort of rewrite this reality, this is the justification for colonization.
Yeah.
You can only say this from the distance of history because like this far away from the actual like main colonialization projects and the sort of post-colonial world we live in now, because when people actually had living memory of the British Raj in India or whatever, the idea that you would say that is maintaining dignity or giving dignity to the Indian people would be ludicrous.
And again, I assume he's talking in the context of Israel and the Palestinians, but and I references go watch the great book Robbery. You want to talk about there's plenty of society in many of these instances, but plenty of even like society that we would find acceptable even from the most sort of Christian colonizing measure, even from Matt Walsh's standards. But continue.
Well, can I just say really quickly before, because I just looked up a few short statistics. Britain stole around $45 trillion from India in its colonization of India. And via the History Channel, History.com, that they estimate that as the 15th century drew to a close, some 60 million people lived across the Americas, and after European settlers, with new disease, warfare, slavery, around 56 million people, or around 90% of the indigenous population, would die. So this is
that's the public health.
That's
have some smallpox.
Exactly. That's what just to be clear about what Matt Walsh is saying was a good force for
Hey,
the
but we
world.
put down some train tracks, so.
Yeah.
World. It was the process of introducing the rule of law, public health, human dignity to certainly this entire hemisphere that we're currently living on.
Also, note, he doesn't say...
As we've talked about earlier in the week, before colonization,
It's to an area.
the natives were ripping the hearts out of children as offerings to their sun gods.
Racist.
And of course, when I say natives, and I say that term, but the tribes that lived on this continent when the conquistadors arrived were themselves not native to this continent. They came here and killed whoever was there first. But in any event, conquering them was the right decision for all of humanity. And it's just beyond dispute that we are all living much better lives now because of it. That's what colonization means.
Except for the people that are dead.
Yeah.
Why
Except
is
for the
it
people
beyond
that are dead.
dispute?
And it's like,
Show a piece of evidence. What is beyond dispute? What is beyond dispute? Like
Africa, yeah, Africa's definitely better off because of colonization.
this is the Facts and Feelings Network. Ben Shapiro. Show us some facts and figures to back up your explosive claim that the killing of tens of millions of people and the taking of trillions of dollars of wealth from different continents that is irrefutably it's made us better.
I mean, I think there is a logic to it. For instance, let's say I was to go and take Matt Walsh's stuff and kill him. I'm not suggesting I would do this, but I'm just using his example here.
Yes.
And I would take his stuff, take his money, take his banjo, have all his flannel. I'd probably maybe sell some of it on Depop.
Makes sense. You would never be able to get the smell out.
I'm certainly not going to wear it. I mean, I think it would be too, probably tight in the chest and across the shoulders. But anyways, the point being, would I be better off? I mean, he'd be dead. Okay, fair. But would I be better off if there was no accountability?
Yeah.
If there was no one to say, hey, you can't do that, or you should go to jail for that, or hey, you've got to pay something to his family. If there was nobody to do that, would I be better off? I mean, I think arguably, would the world be better off? I mean, probably, definitely. I mean, so there is a logic to what he's saying in terms of like, if I come in and kill people and take their stuff, or, put them into like a little refugee camp, let's say, or a reservation and take their stuff.
Or put them in another kind of camp with walls around it.
However type of camp, or I kill them and I take their stuff and their resources, am I better off? I think the answer is, particularly if I'm not going to be held to account, yeah, of course. Of course. So in that sense, there's a logic to what he's saying.
It's an extermination.
I'm sorry for
yes,
being
it's an extermination.
I'm too emotional to see it.
You're not looking at facts.
To this continent. They came here and killed whoever was there first. But in any event, conquering them was the right decision for all of humanity. And
except for it's the point. So, okay, again, if you decide that the people you are conquering, i.e. killing, pillaging, stealing from, are not human, then there is a logic to what he's saying. Humanity only consists of people who rape, pillage, and steal without accountability and their ancestors. And if that's the way that you view the world, which I think Matt Walsh clearly does, and that's why we say he's fascistic or we say he's a theocrat, then yes, it makes sense within his inner logic. Continue.
First, but in any event, conquering them was the right decision for all of humanity. And it's just beyond dispute that we are all living much better lives now because of it. That's what colonization means in practical terms. It means you're doing a lot better now than you would have if colonization had never occurred. And
unless you had been colonized.
Why not admit you're...
And after the massacres in Israel this week and the shameful and brazen response from many corners of the left, no serious person can dispute what decolonization means either.
Sorry, can you pause?
It refers to...
But, like, why did he start that whole bit about denying being a colonizer then? Like, if you say, like, it's done good for this hemisphere specifically, and then, who did the colonizing then?
Well, I mean, I think we're talking about this also sometimes within the context of, like, Israel-Palestine right now. Like, well, you know, they deserve it. When we strike them and we kill children, it's because they were human shields. But even if we did do that, we actually did it in certain instances because they deserve it. They did it to themselves, essentially. Or that it was not on purpose and we were targeting Hamas fighters. They always try to have it both ways in justifying brutality.
And after the massacres in Israel this week and the shameful and brazen response from many corners of the left, no serious person can dispute what decolonization means either. It refers to a genocidal ideology that we have let fester for far too long. And at this point, the stakes are obvious. Everybody promoting decolonization wants to murder civilians, not just in Israel, but in every civilized country on the planet. Don't ignore what they're saying. Understand that they are your enemy.
Well, pause it. I mean, you can talk about what they're saying, but there's no reason not to listen to what Israel is saying as well. And you could actually even look at just sheer numbers. And if we're talking about killing civilians, there is, if we sitting in a closet in Brooklyn in front of IKEA panels can predict there are going to be hundreds, if not thousands, of civilian deaths by these bombings, then surely the people dropping the bombs are aware of that too. Like, the idea of we're not targeting civilians.
Right.
Therefore, we get a free pass on the implications of what we are supposedly targeting. Even if I was to accept the idea that, like, they believe there is a military value to a hospital. They believe there is a military value to the UN thing. Even if I was to accept that, even if I was to stipulate that, which I am highly skeptical about, but even if I was to stipulate that, there is a concept in the law of, in terms of both, like in terms of manslaughter, in terms of liability, that if a reasonable person knows that this is going to happen because of your actions, you have liability. And at the end of the day, it does not matter to you as a parent if your kid was intentionally targeted or just like it was quite obvious that your kid was going to get killed. It really doesn't. And it's, I mean, this has been said a million times.
Yeah.
Should we let him finish here? Okay.
Murder civilians, not just in Israel, but in every civilized country on the planet. Don't ignore what they're saying. Understand that they are your enemy and the enemy of all civilized people.
Civilized.
And that's why when they call you a colonizer, you should tell them you're welcome. And then you should prepare to defend yourself.
Which, like, I remember watching,
Why don't these people appreciate it?
I know.
Like, that's the thing. It's so obvious. It's without any
great
argument.
for humanity.
It's so obviously good for humanity. It's just that the non-humans amongst us don't get it.
We are the benevolent killers.
That's why you
We're
get protected.
They just hate They just hate doing better than they were doing before.
They hate us for our freedom.
Who doesn't?
I remember watching the film Pocahontas growing up, the Disney one, and the villains talk about how they need to be civilized, speaking about indigenous people in this country, and it's presented in a children's film as like a very problematic statement, and that movie has its issues 100%. But I remember that as well, and like someone like Matt Walsh can't even grasp onto that concept as an adult. But like the Israeli Prime Minister tweeted out, I think yesterday, this is a struggle between the children of light and the children of darkness, between humanity and the law of the jungle. See if you can find any daylight in between what Matt Walsh is saying about colonization and essentially those tens of millions of people that died and the trillions of wealth stolen. It's not the same, but the impulse and the dehumanization behind that, and that kind of statement. This is a struggle between us, presumably white people, and the uncivilized.
What does jungle
mean? The law
mean?
of the jungle.
Is there jungles in Gaza?
Actually, no. It's an open-air prison that's actually mostly concrete because it has to house 2.4 million people in there. So there's no jungle there.
Within 5,000 miles.
Then let's think more about that. Who lives in jungles? Who lives in jungles? Animals. I mean, they've called them human animals at this point. Savages. And they're okay to be colonized in that way. Like, I mean, honestly, it's just crazy that he can say this kind of stuff and also provide zero evidence, and there will be a certain fraction of people that are like, that makes sense to me, because it reaffirms my existing beliefs about certain kinds of people being savages and members of the jungle, right? Abiding by the law of the jungle. That's what that's appealing to. That's the deepest form of racism, and the fact that he's trying to rewrite history based on that is an effort to excuse what's happening right now.
Final caller of the day, 815.
Very slight. Oh, shoot. Hold on.
They're on another.
Hello?
Hello. 815.
Hi,
You are the final caller of the day.
Calling from Chicago. I'm just going to go with Cucker Charleston, which
Okay.
is the name I am over.
Cucker
I'm going to
Charleston.
dish on my work later.
All right.
Quick question for you, Sam.
Yep.
You do a lot of woodworking. You do a lot of gardening. So you have a place upstate then, or are you just in the city?
Yeah, no, I've had a place upstate for almost 25 years.
How many acres you got?
A couple acres.
Couple acres. Well, good for you. I live in the city. I got a 2-flat, and I garden, and I enjoy all that stuff.
Oh, that's nice.
Calling to talk about the Kroger and Jewel, or Kroger and Albertsons merger.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm a pharmacist. I manage a pharmacy here in Chicago, and just wanted to mention how horrible it has been since this announcement, and since we're pretty clear the FTC is going to clear it. They spent all summer long cutting hours to the absolute bone, and we were dying in what was normally the slow season, knowing full well we're coming up here to give shots, and we are giving them. We are giving COVID shots, flu shots, you name it. And it is absolutely atrocious working conditions now. So you look at the news, you see CVS, you see Walgreens walking out, and every day I dream of walking out. The joke is that we're a union shop. We're with the grocery union here in Chicago. But man, pharmacy unions are some of the weakest unions around, because you got people that went into this industry. They just want to have kids, raise their family, and not think about it. So when it comes to supporting their union, supporting labor, they just are no-shows, and management kind of reigns.
And is it the leadership of the union that's problematic, or the membership in that instance?
I participate some, and I think it's most of the membership. I think if the members were to participate more, we'd have a lot more leverage. And we're coming up to the contract negotiations here in the spring, so I'm hoping we might get something out of that. But in the meantime, it's just awful. So firstly, I want to encourage everybody to go ahead and get their shots. It's absolutely important, but try to schedule them. And for my poor folks at Walgreens who are getting scheduled shots every 8 minutes without adequate help, I just feel terrible for them. This is, we recognize that everybody needs healthcare, everybody needs shots, but the system in this country, leaving it to private businesses, has just led to a disaster.
Right.
Real quick, the profits coming in when we were getting shots for free from the government for $70, or selling them for $70, the profits were off the charts. And what seems to be happening industry wide is they're trying to make those profits realize here in normal times, get those share prices up. And there's nowhere you can't compete with free. You get something for free, you sell for $70, you're going to make a fortune.
Right.
But what they're doing now is just cutting us below sustainable.
I mean, it's the people in the C-suite, the board of directors, the CEOs. They want to maintain those margins, and they will do it on the backs of labor. That's it. Period. End of story.
Yep, and with my brothers in the healthcare industry and the nursing industry that have seen those takeovers over the last 20 years, feel solidarity with them. That's the main revelation that industry has brought to healthcare is that they can make more money for shareholders if they cut staffing, and it is not good for patient care. It's not good for workers. It's not good for anybody. If you could, I'm going to go ahead and let you go. If you can opine a little bit on this merger in terms of groceries, I hear that this company, behemoth company, if it's allowed to merge, is going to be something like 25% of all the grocery stores in the country. So
yeah,
I'll leave it at that. I'll let you
say
something, and you have a nice day. Bye.
All right. We're going to have somebody on to talk about this.
The Walgreens stuff?
Yeah, with the Kroger and Albertsons merger.
We headlined the Walgreens walkout, or no, was it Rite Aid? Or no, it was Walgreens walkout last week. It's just another example of all of these mega corporations staffing on the slimmest margins and overworking their existing employees so they can extract more labor.
And did we talk to Dan yesterday about Rite Aid bankruptcy and what it's going to do in terms of like consolidated the prescription benefits managers? All right, we will have a more in-depth interview about that. All right, that completes our call-in portion of our program. Let's play this clip that you just because and then we'll go and see where we're at in terms of the next vote for Jim Jordan. It is the House appears to be going to a second ballot. Jim Jordan lost the first one by 20 votes against him. He needed 17 votes, right? That's what we're at, 2017.
According to Punchbowl's Max Cohen, who got a quote from Representative Michael McCall, who is I believe the chair of the Foreign Affairs Committee, whose the quote is, "If he has 21 no's, I don't see how he can recover. For me, the wild card is McCarthy coming back," which is a wonderful segue into this clip from Kevin McCarthy, who got into it with a Fox News reporter of all people, according to Aaron Rupar, who clipped this. We're coming into this cold, but Kevin McCarthy tries to blame the Democrats again, which is absolutely hilarious.
McCarthy. Let's listen to Kevin McCarthy here.
Now we have rules. We don't have to be stuck on the floor. The interesting part is why we're here. Every single Democrat voted to stop one branch of government. They created this mess with 8 Republicans. Every single Democrat did that. And so I think what we'll do is we'll go sit down. We'll talk to those that have difference of opinion and come back.
Did the margin surprise you?
Thank you.
Do you feel bad for Mr. Do you feel bad right now for Mr. Jordan? You threw your support for him. Do you feel bad for him?
No. Don't over read into this. This is about the same vote I had on my first vote out. Why we're in the no. Let's go back to how it got here. We wouldn't be here if every single Democrat didn't vote with 8 Republicans to shut this place down. That's it. No,
Republicans voted against Jim Jordan today on the floor, including 2 votes from somebody who's not even a member anymore.
Every single Democrat and 8 Republicans voted to shut down one branch of government. That is why we're here today. There's no other reason why we're here today but because of that. Now we had a vote on the floor. It didn't get to the whole point. Now we'll take a break, talk to people, and come back and solve it.
So how long? Is this going to be today?
Yeah, there's...
There we go.
So Kevin McCarthy has a story. He's going to stick to it. There has never been an occasion where Democrats have voted for a Republican speaker. Or, well, I don't know if that's true. Is that true? Or Republicans have voted for a Democratic speaker? I don't know in the history of.
I don't think.
But
a
it
lot
is
of Republicans
completely
voted for
absurd
Pelosi.
that Democrats would participate in that
Yes.
without getting anything in return for their vote.
Which McCarthy very clearly said, "I will not negotiate." With
Yeah, elections have consequences, as we have heard many
Mm-hmm.
times. And, if you're not going to give anybody a reason to vote for you at all, and it's not like, Democrats, it's not like the Democrats, we're voting for the lesser of two evils. They just weren't going to vote in the affirmative to save Kevin McCarthy. What was the point?
I mean, he
Kevin
created
McCarthy
this mess.
could have avoided this easily by reaching across the aisle and say, here's my hand, let me see yours. But he just said, you put your hand across the aisle and massage me in some way.
No. It goes back to January. The fact that he made this deal, the devil's bargain, to get into power. Like, the idea that he's blaming Democrats for the agreement that he came to with members of his caucus to secure his own power is ridiculous. And we heard the reports after McCarthy was ousted in this historic fashion, Matt Gaetz blowing things up. Thank you very much, Matt Gaetz, for that. We really appreciate it. That Hakeem Jeffries, as one of the big tests of partisanship in his new role as leader of the Democrats in the House, played a clip of McCarthy on a Sunday show blaming the Democrats for getting close to a shutdown.
Right.
And, if McCarthy really wants to actually solve this, and I think he still is holding out hope that he'll be selected once again, don't blame Democrats again, because they have no interest in doing a deal with Democrats. And frankly, I'm thrilled. I don't want them to do a deal with Democrats. I want the Democrats to let them hang themselves on this and portray themselves ahead of a very pivotal and unfortunately likely close 2024 election as the party of chaos. Because people were sick of that under Trump. It's a great reminder that this is the same party that Trump leads.
We just had an IM as we wrap things up here. Hey, Majority Report, I have a call to action. The U.S. Copyright Office has an open comment period on how AI content should be handled, including if artists whose work was used in training need to be compensated. Tomorrow is the last day to comment. So we will put that link in the podcast and YouTube description. I just sent it to the IM. It is open comment on AI, and head over there, submit a formal comment. You got one more day. Super easy to do. Just click on a button, add something, and say and write that artists whose work have been used in training need to be compensated. That's all it takes. All right, folks. Let me read 3 more IMs and then we'll get out of here because we got to do another interview. Emma's fanboy. Is it anti-Semitism to say I just don't care what happens to Israel? They're an apartheid state and quite frankly shouldn't exist.
You should distinguish between a state and the people involved in it, and the citizens of it, I think.
I don't think that's right to say. I will be honest with you. Can't say, I don't know your heart. I can't say if it's anti-Semitic or not, but I'd encourage you to look up what Nelson Mandela had to say about Palestine in 1990, which I watched over the weekend amidst my obsessive kind of fixation on this. And he respected that Israel is a state. And you have to respect that they are a state. But you do not have to respect the apartheid system. You do not have to respect the dehumanization of Palestinians. There needs to be a way for Palestinians and people in Gaza to have full citizenship rights and the ability to participate in their own democratic process. That's what the focus is. And you should care about regular Israelis who get killed in this conflict and who died in the terrorist attack, many of whom... Not enough. I mean, there should be more people that are against the occupation, but there are many people in Israel, brave leftists as well, who stand up to this. So it's way too simplistic and takes you down a really dangerous path if you make that claim.
But I do think you need to say what is Israel as the state that has a right to exist? And I think John Kerry put it when he says it can either exist as a Jewish state or a democratic one. And to me, the movement, two-state solution is a cul-de-sac. It doesn't seem practical or realistic. To me, one state, everyone has full political rights, needs to be like, that's how Israel has a right to exist. And I don't think Israel wants to exist like that. And so like when we talk about like the right to exist, I think like a lot of things, ideological things are embedded in that.
All right. Kowalski. It brings me much pleasure knowing that the people of Omaha have thrown a wrench into the fascist engine of the GOP. It's incredible to me that Matt, little bitch, Walsh ignores the indigenous people's horticultural technology was superior to European technology. The potato literally ended Afro-Eurasian famine, allowing the Enlightenment to happen. Thank you, Farmer Kowalski. Another Kowalski from Nebraska. What is this? He's got multiple. A full-scale invasion of Gaza by Israel will be like the Battle of Grozny back in the 90s. No one walks away. International Socialist. Sam, that Freedom song looks like it had Trump as the conductor, director, and editor. All right, two more. Sick Kyle. I must stand up for T-Pain during this time. The king of auto-tune has a beautiful voice as demonstrated by his NPR Tiny Desk. Mike Flynn is a disgrace. The pop song Bush Was Right is also a classic. Oh, yeah. Do you remember that? We used to play that.
No.
Oh, yes, we have.
Bush Was Right?
Bush was right.
Oh, yeah. That's horrible.
It's SLC Kyle. SLC Kyle.
Oh, SLC Kyle.
Salt Lake. It's not.
Oh.
It's not what you just said.
Okay, sorry about that. SLC
I was about
Kyle.
to be like, don't IM us ever again if you put that as your IM handle.
Slim Jimi Hendrix. The United States literally sent the army to eradicate the Plains buffalo in order to wipe out the Plains Indians' main source of food.
Yep.
Oh, you and your history.
It wasn't just the army, though. It was also settlers, which were marshaled to go do that. Go have at it, guys. Kill those buffaloes, stack them.
The final IM of the day. Oh, there we go. Bear with me. One answer, Mark Monkey, one answer when Israeli supporters say that we're supporting being against Israel's right to exist is that they need to understand the biggest threat for Israel's continued existence is it's operating as an apartheid state.
Yes.
If you understand what was wrong about the Iraq War, you know that why this is wrong. If you know why what we did to indigenous people was wrong, you know why this was wrong. Hell, if you know why what the Nazis did was wrong, you know why this is wrong. To quote John Kerry, not exactly an anti-Zionist, Israel can either be a Jewish state or a democracy. It cannot be both. Was that John Kerry who said that?
Yeah. John Kerry in 2016 or 2014, something like that.
I am surprised.
I
I
know.
thought I heard that was someone else. But
He might have, might have been the last
Going
time.
off on one.
Right.
Folks, we will see you tomorrow. Matt, Bradley, Emma, great job today. See you tomorrow.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there.